Welcome everyone to the Atlassian in Scotland 2021 Roundup. And we wanted to finish the series by sharing the highlights with you to help you take the next steps towards cloud migration. Now, the Atlassian in Scotland series featured a range of speakers from across the cloud ecosystem, and we covered a range of topics such as the journey to cloud, migration best practices and tips, partner demos, migration tools, customer stories, and much, much more. So here's some of the key moments from across the series. Now, if you have only just tuned in, you are listening to New Verve Consulting, your Atlassian Gold solution partner in Scotland. We work with a whole range of trusted partners to help build our bespoke solutions and to provide expert partner knowledge. So we could not host our series without inviting a few of them along. So we started the series with Atlassian, of course. Mert, our first guest and solutions engineer at Atlassian, talked us through Atlassian's cloud vision. Now, what Mert told us is that cloud is the future and that Atlassian expects 80% of enterprise workloads to shift to cloud by 2025. And if you're still not convinced on migration to cloud, have a listen to hear Mert explain the key reasons to move to cloud.
So overall, in cloud movement, beyond Atlassian, let's start with in general cloud mentality and a SaaS approach. If we generalize things, we see an average response on these reasons. To start with, the most important one may be the scalability. Scalability is super important because we are here to make business, make money, right? We want to grow in terms of business, maybe double with our services and product use. But this sounds good, but if we don't have the technology to support that use case, we may have problems going forward with major incidents, bad customer experience, bad reputations, or internally stressed out team members. So with on-prem installations, we know that the resources are finite, and this would be either vertically or horizontally keeping you restricted with the scalability aspect. But in cloud, the perspective is quite different because cloud provider is already there with all these resources available for your use with financially backed SLAs and everything optimized with your kind of use case. Not for only you, but for many enterprises with scale. Going forward with the speed and performance, this can sound very subjective to you, but when we talk about performance, we like to tie it to versioning, upgrades, indexing, as well as storage aspect. So when we analyze our customer domain, we've seen most of our customers are not really updating their version of on-prem installation, which eventually and inevitably causing some performance issues. But in cloud, it's not the case because it's just one version, always up to date with most beautiful features and security patches. So you don't really have to worry about versioning or indexing. With the unlimited storage options available in cloud, you don't have to worry about that as well if you're having degraded performance. But there are also certain financially backed SLAs tying this performance and the speed increase in the cloud performance. Team productivity is taking place, especially in the last 2 years with the COVID times. I'm sure you can relate to this one. So increasing trend to go to remote working, we can see productivity is, we're trying to find more productive ways to build teamwork and especially extend it to a certain, even more going forward. So according to a survey, Microsoft Office 365 conducted, 70% of their customer base is happy with the cloud, and they've seen increase in the productivity. And standard survey last year is also approving this one with a similar number of, similar increase in the percentage. So I will come back to team productivity from Atlassian perspective later on in this presentation. But with the other integrations, the other tools you've been using in the cloud environment, you can also experience increase in the team productivity with the reduce of the context switch and various options in between those integrations. And lastly, maybe most important for some of you, increasing the profits and lowering the costs. So I have an image for this one, because to explain this one, I need to have this example. If you directly compare a cloud SaaS-based solution subscription cost to an on-prem subscription cost, you will be misled for sure. What we generalize in an average, we see a hidden cost behind an on-premise installation that you've been spending time as well as cost with this iceberg. So you'll be dealing with performance, upgrades, hosting, and keeping that data secure and with all the policies, privacy policies implemented with the maintenance, and many more items will be hidden costs to maintain a proper on-prem installation. And apart from the on-prem solution, you can have a cloud subscription where Atlassian or any other cloud provider can maintain all this infrastructure for you. And then you can reduce the cost over there, but maybe there will be a little bit more for the subscription. So for your real calculation, for your real own use case, I suggest you to go through our Atlassian website and start assessing your own use case and get real numbers to see a realistic comparison.
But what would you do if you don't fancy migrating everything to cloud at once? Now, this is where Xlate, another one of our partners, can help you out. Xlate is an issue-by-issue migration solution, which allows you to migrate to cloud at your own pace. So we'll let our friend Jose, who is a pre-sales engineer at Xlate, explain how issue-by-issue migration can help your company gradually move to cloud.
And that leads me to the third type of migration. That is the one that we recommend, that if you're using Xlate, you go for this one. That is the issue-by-issue approach, or live migration. A live migration consists of you gradually transferring issues from the instance of origin to the destination instance for a longer period of time than it would take you to do a big bang approach, so that you get all the benefits of transferring to the new tool without having the problems that I mentioned before, like people, your employees not understanding how the new tool works, you reducing as much errors as possible. How do you reduce them in this case? You reduce them because you'll go batch by batch, and those batches are usually represented in specific tickets. So if there's an error in one of the batches, that error is not going to affect all the other batches that you already migrated. Things will be more detailed, and you'll be able to see where the error is, instead of having an error in a batch of 20,000 tickets. It's going to be more difficult to find it. So those are some of the benefits. People will learn how to use the tool. Your staff will adapt gradually, and you have more details on the errors that you're having. But to give you more context on how this looks, when you have Xlate, you will be able to have both tools working. So from, let's say, Jira A, you start sending and migrating those tickets to Jira B. Currently with Xlate, you can migrate 300 tickets per hour, to give you an idea of how much tickets you can migrate at a certain time. And you can have your staff slowly migrate to the other tool, so that they start experimenting with that tool while not fully removing the last one in case there are problems with the new one. The information will be in both instances for a while, and then after that information is fully migrated to the new instance, you will have two instances with all the information, and that's when you decide if you want to remove the past instance or you want to have it as an archive instance. You have all the information.
And finally, once you've migrated, you will no doubt want to customize and enhance your solution to meet your team's needs. And that's where Refined comes in. Refined is a theming tool for Jira and Confluence that specializes in giving users the power to build custom branded sites with no code required. And as part of the series, we hosted Raj, a refined customer success specialist, who taught us about Refine's migration path and what users can expect after the move to cloud. Have a listen to Raj giving us some tips about how to get the most out of your cloud setup.
So I'll talk a bit about some tips that you can think about if you're migrating and how to go about it. So with the current lay of the land, given that you need to do the restructuring and so on cloud again, I'll share some points that might be useful to consider and to have in mind. So firstly, it's an opportunity to evaluate the existing setup that you have on server, especially if it's been in place for a long time, and try and improve it when you move to the cloud instance. So you can evaluate what is working well, what's not working well, what is legacy content and isn't maybe in use anymore, and try and do away with that. And then given the flexibility of integration on cloud, how can you take advantage of this and leverage the parallel universes to better serve the end users? For example, on server, if you have a separate documentation site and a separate customer support site, you can consider combining these into one when you go on cloud, since you can add the spaces and the service desk on the same site. Or you can keep them separate, but still integrate aspects of each other on them by adding in, for example, request types on pages in the documentation to allow easy access to support. The parallel universe setup, it gives you so much more flexibility in deciding if, when, and how to combine and to reuse content from the different Atlassian spaces and projects that you have existing already. And speaking of the base platforms, a key consideration to make when you're migrating is to prepare this in the best way possible. So remember that Refined is the presentation layer. The content itself is coming from Confluence and coming from Jira. So it's key to ensure that this is optimized. And migrating is an opportunity to take a look at this and think a little bit about, for example, in Confluence, what can you merge into a single space? And if you have spaces that are overflowing with content, what can you split up into separate spaces? You can evaluate the state of your service management projects. If you have a setup, for example, that's grown out of hand and you have way too many request type groups in a single project, for example, maybe think about splitting those up. Take a look at how you can improve what you have, analyze what could be done away with, what could be introduced, and identify improvement opportunities at this level. Finally, a good tip is to start with an MVP, so the minimum viable product. It's incredibly easy to roll out on cloud, given the parallel setup, so Refined will not affect the base Atlassian instance and the content there. So you can take that as an opportunity to come up with what could be the easiest aspects to start with on Refined, roll that out first, and then continue to iterate as you go forward. For example, you can start with a Refined site for a simpler use case, such as documentation, or one aspect of your service management, maybe HR support, and then use that to evaluate and gather feedback from relevant stakeholders and utilize that when you're building out secondary Refined sites that might have more complex use cases, such as an internet site, for example.
Now, of course, when you're deciding on your migration journey, you'll probably want to hear from those who have actually done it before. That's why we invited some of our cloud customers to give their perspective and tips for the cloud move. At Verve, we worked with Kantar to help them migrate to Atlassian Cloud, and their IT liaison executive, Randeep Mann, took us through that experience. From Randeep, we heard about Kantar's challenges running a large-scale migration, as well as how life has improved for Kantar since their move to cloud. Listen to Randeep telling us why working with Verve was so important in having a successful migration.
But there were still challenges with that internal infrastructure. So our corporate strategy, like with many companies, was to move to the cloud, and Jira had a cloud version. There was also a focus on freeing up our developers to be able to do more client work, to do more client-centric, agile development. And so moving away from ad hoc, small-scale developments into much more professional, big teams. So there was a combination of how do we move on to the cloud, how do we reduce our reliance and risk on internal development and support, and also moving towards using external expertise and skills, and leveraging their skills that would go beyond what we could produce. We wanted to continue to use the softwares, Jira Software, Jira Service Management, and Confluence. We wanted it to be a really trusted solution. So with our current solution, while the platform was stable, the underlying infrastructure did have issues. It did have downtime, and if there was support required, the internal teams would take time. And so there was a real focus on how could we have something that just was available, that didn't require teams to be working on it, didn't require downtime. And so moving on to the cloud using Atlassian's software as a service was a very big objective. Moving with, so this is where we leveraged New Verve and leveraged their managed migration service. They were able to provide project management for the migration. They were able to capture all of the information that we required. They very much freed our team to not having to get too involved with this as much as possible. And we worked on planning a soft launch before fairly quickly migrating off our current solution.
Now, for our panel discussion, we were also joined by two more of our migration customers, both of whom were at very different stages of their journey to cloud. The student loans company have completed their move to cloud and are already enjoying the benefits that migration has brought with it. The operational manager, Peter Bruning, joined us for the discussion. On the other hand, Synergy Learning are only just beginning their migration. They have recently undertaken an initial migration readiness audit with New Verve. They were represented by their head of operations, Peter Heinz. Let's hear about what excites them the most about moving to cloud.
Are there any benefits in the Atlassian cloud that actually excite you, to move over, or that have excited you, at the time that you were moving to cloud? So Peter Bruning, when you were moving to cloud, was there anything in particular that excited you?
Yeah, it's difficult to pin it down, but I think one of the key things for us was to have this single point where everything is, because coming from a very spread out, and for instance, what we couldn't do is any sensible reporting, because it was all in different places, and we also have EasyBI as our reporting tool, and I think that has really helped us quite a lot in terms of also, for instance, promoting it to senior management, because they often they don't want to see a huge board with all sorts of tickets. They just want the big picture. I know there's reporting in Jira as well, but it might not be only cloud, but for us that was definitely a big advantage to have that reporting capability, but also therefore using that to promote the use of Jira. And we're doing that to this day. You were showing them reports and saying, oh, you can get this, you can get that, you can click into it, you can do all sorts of things. Oh, great, and why can I not get that for that team? Oh, well, they haven't done using Jira yet. So you get a bit of, through that, you get a bit of a push to start using it more. So I would think for me, it's that central repository and reporting options, which really helps me.
100%, and I think you've also highlighted another benefit, which is the opportunity to consolidate. So again, something to consider on your migration path if you are on that journey. It is a real opportunity to consolidate. Maybe you're running multiple on-prem sites, and the migration to cloud gives you an opportunity to merge them together into one. And obviously, New Verve can help you with that. Peter Heinz, what about yourself? Any benefits in cloud that excite you?
Yeah, I mean, for us, I think it was the rate of development of new features and the way in which they're delivered, just behind the scenes almost. It's really nice to have that. It's a bit of a sea change from the more sort of forklift-esque approach, of upgrading your server and all the associated planning that goes into that behind the scenes. So having those new features, and I think also just there's a real more contemporary feel to the cloud applications. From within the more technical side of our teams, that wasn't so much of a concern, but for the less technical members, they really tend to engage more with it, more with the cloud applications than they had done previously with the server versions.
Our panel discussion was rounded off by Atlassian Solutions Engineer Sasha Vesvido, and it was great to get his input on the migration issues and benefits, which our customers discussed earlier. We made sure to take this opportunity to ask Atlassian anything, and Sasha gave us a useful insight into the Atlassian cloud migration assistants that have been such a big help to so many migrations already.
Off the back of this, a question directly to Sasha from Atlassian. Both of our panelists spoke about sort of migrating either to consolidate existing products or migrating and sort of having considerations around apps in the marketplace, the third-party products. Obviously, the Cloud Migration Assistant from Atlassian facilitates both of these scenarios. And we know that there is some initial support for some third-party products in it already, but do we have any visibility of when we could expect more products to be added? Any sort of new release of the Cloud Migration Assistant on the horizon?
Yeah, so as you correctly mentioned, the Cloud Migration Assistant does support the automated app migration already. What is sometimes missing is the app part, because the marketplace app itself has to support that as well. And there we are back at the question with the app vendors kept catching up. Supporting that automated migration path, and good news is they are catching up very quickly, because it has been known for a long time that this is going to come, and that's going to bring much value for the customers, obviously, and they're getting more and more in every day. You can actually see that in the Cloud Migration Assistant, where it says we have that app assessment page, and it says there is an automated path available or a half manual, and you get a link for the rest that you might have to do. But that completely depends on the app itself. And even sometimes the app itself doesn't store any data, so there's no migration necessary in the first place. But that is also an information you get on the app assessment page. Yeah.
Awesome.
So,
very
one thing you can do on the marketplace is you can watch an app for updates, and if you have a specific one that you're waiting for to support the automatic migration, just watch the app and you get an automatic email when there's any movement from the app vendor.
After everything you've heard in this series, I am sure you're ready to start your own cloud journey for you, and New Verve is here to help. Now, whether you're on a single application, such as Jira Software, or maybe you need to merge multiple instances into one, we can help in designing your migration strategy and carrying out the heavy lifting for you. The stages of migration that we can provide are as follows: pre-migration health check, migration plan, data migration, data merge from multiple sites, and post-migration support. So as you can see, we can support and guide you throughout the journey. Now, everyone's path to cloud looks different, but we're here to make sure that you choose the path that's right for you and your team. So get in touch if you'd like to know more about migration, start your journey, or refine your cloud solution. Once again, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you at the next series.